On to another NACLO sample problem. So let's go to the NACLO page, link to practice problems, and we're using the sample practice problems here, along with the giant selection of all these NACLOs since they first started in 2007. But you can click on sample practice problems to go right down here. So first we did agta. The second one is one called alliteration. Now this is a funny little problem that you can see it's asking you to think of a word. Think of two words. Interesting little problem, but you can see it's quite unusual and different compared to most problems. I'm going to leave this one. But it might be interesting to go into it sometime. But it's quite different from most problems you're going to find. Ambiguous, the file is missing. Okay, so we'll skip that one as well. And then we get to Amharic. Okay. Amharic, language of Ethiopia. And we get some history on it. Major language, and it also has a famous ancient writing system, which you see used to write this sort of ancient Ethiopian, or first used to write ancient Ethiopian and still used today. Then the instructions, you get the words with their translations, and then at the bottom we get Roman transcription, Roman alphabet or the English alphabet. Important note that these capital letters are different from the non-capital, so they have to be treated differently. Okay. So, get a nice zoom here, and we are now ready to face the problem. Okay, here we go. So we're going to match. We need to match. Okay, so how do we approach this? Well, we can see we have 10 transcriptions, and they need to line up to each of the words here. So yeah, I think I would start by just writing each of these transcriptions out. Make sure to get the capitals there. Turn off your auto caps. That always gets in the way when doing linguistics. It thinks you're writing English sentences. It wants to give you a capital letter at the beginning of everything. But here you have to control your capital or no capital. Ooh, and then get down. Oh, I see. Well, now we see what stands out first. Well, the first thing that shows up to me is like this word piano seems kind of interesting because there is a piano here. Huh. So that's pretty good. Now, could that be a trap? You know, is it just a coincidence that, you know, piano means something else? They have a different word for piano. And so that's just meant to be like a red herring, or it's meant to be a trick. Possible. But it seems likely to me that this is the word for piano. So when it comes to words that are loan words or words that are brought in from another language, it's very common whenever there's a new technology that wasn't there before. So you see it a lot, like around the world, like words for like computers and phones, like they often come from English, like a lot of technology words. And because they're brought in, like a phone appears, this new thing, and so what do you call it? Well, why not call it a phone? There's some languages that insist on making new words, but many, perhaps most languages, if there is some new item of technology that comes in, they'll take the word and adapt it. And then, of course, English does this too with things that come from outside. And you can see this, of course, clearly with things like food. When a new food comes in, we tend to take that word, we use that word from the original language, like pizza. We didn't call it like, like a a cheese pie or something. You know, it's like we take the word. So that's probably, I would guess, what's happening with piano. But we can try a different way in as well. As with all this, as with all these puzzles, we're looking for the patterns. And so what stands out? What stands out that can be identified? And there's multiple possible ways in. So one way was that looking for something familiar, like that word piano that showed up. Another thing that stands out for me is, notice that almost all of these are only two symbols. And there's only two of them that have three. And one of them is piano, which kind of makes me, again, be even more confident about piano, because this looks like it's piano, like three, there's three pieces. But there's another one that has three here, and it fits with one thing we see here. Besides just being three instead of two, so that stands out. But also what definitely stands out is, once again, repetition. Repetition being something that is always great to look for in a puzzle. So here we have the first two characters repeated, and then another one. And look at this, ko-ko-ku. So, or ko-ko-tu. They're not giving the exact pronunciation. It's not going to be quite like that. But I feel pretty good about making this one line up with this one. Okay, so if we do that, and when it comes to making guesses, like with puzzles, usually like it's good to make a guess, make a working theory, you know, and work with that. Like you don't need to know for sure. You can start to get a possible clue, and then if you get stuck, you can go back. But a lot of the time, when you come up with that working theory of what seems to be a good candidate, it actually does work. Okay, so we have now because we have this, you see, another thing that just shows up in every puzzle, it's like in so many puzzles, it's like once you get one piece, that one piece gives you the key to get the second piece. So you just need that first handle into the puzzle. And so here you can see we now have new information. If we imagine that this is ko-ko-ku, then we know that this, you know, we're dividing it into three pieces, right? It's going to be like this is ko-ko-ku, and you know, with apologies for the Amharic pronunciation, but this is going to be ko. Okay, so now we could use this knowledge that this symbol means ko, and we can look here again, don't be misled by the non-capital K, but look at this, we have ko-K. We have another word that starts with that same symbol. So we can look for that here, and make sure there's only one, because make sure you're not confused. There's only, we're not misled by anything. There is only one, and that's E, my partridge. So there it is. This symbol is the same here. So we can bet if this is ko, this is ko. And that means that ko-K here is going to match with E. So now you can start to feel like there's like the cascade coming, because now we know what K is. And so we can look for other Ks. Oh, okay, I was getting excited about the chain reaction of one clue leading to another. But it looks like it stops here because there is no other capital K-E. So we can't use that directly in order to lead to anything else. And we also don't see any of this ku, the CU. We don't see another CU anywhere. So that is a dead end. Now, one thing we could do now is we could look back we could go for piano, because like the piano is a very good way in. I'm almost like trying to avoid doing that. So like can try to solve it in like a purely linguistic way without using, this word. But it looks like using piano would be a good way to go. But even then, what I see with piano, if you look, P, ya, no, even if these three are P, ya, no, there are no other words that have these sounds P, ya, or no. Okay, so we have to do a little bit more work. It's not going to be quite that easy. We don't have any exact matches anymore of anything that's known. So we have to go into a little bit more subtle detail. One thing that we can see is that characters that are similar looking seem to have some similar sounds. So even if we don't have exact matches, we might have some kind of partial match. Like in our word here, E for K, these letters look very similar. It's like the only difference, like here, this has a circle at the top, this has a circle at the bottom. And it's K. They both have these K sounds. So it makes me wonder, is this sort of line and circle shape, is that kind of this capital K sound? And then the circle at the top means O, and the circle at the bottom means A, or the letter E sound. And that's interesting. Okay, so if then it makes me imagine, can we use that as a clue for anything else? Can that we looked for all the capital K's, so we don't have any other capital K's. We don't have any capital C's anywhere, so we can't use that. But we can look for other O and E vowels. You see, so if we think of the top as O, the top circle as O, and the bottom circle as A. Oh, and look, for piano, see, if we imagine this is piano, we also get a circle at the top for no, piano. There it is. So that's looking pretty good. That's looking like a good pattern. And I wonder, here we have K, the small letters K, and we have, we're going to have an O and an A, just like here we have O and A. So if we look for another word that you have circle at the top, circle at the bottom. Ooh, no, not finding it. This one kind of looks, one of these two at the top or bottom, you can see the circle at the bottom of the second symbol. And same with on G here. But I'm not seeing anything that's matching. Okay, so that's a dead end. See, every time we go to a dead end, we just take a step back, look down another direction. I think it's now time to get into this word piano, see what we can do. So we do have the P here. There's no other P, but there is this pay sound here for zipe. So if we get the shape at the beginning of the word piano, that shape should match the shape and be similar to the shape of the second symbol of zipe, because this is P and this is pay. Just like we saw here, we have ko and K. They both have the similar shape, just with a different kind of tail or a different circle there. So we can imagine the same thing here for this P sound. So if we take this, now we could look for something where the second letter has something similar looking. So looking down at all the second letters. Ooh, similar, but oh, this one, see in J here, this is looking quite similar, almost too similar. You see, like this almost looks like a T with like a line coming out the bottom, and then this is like a T with a circle at the bottom. Now, okay, but the circle at the bottom, we think for other letters that represents an O sound. So I feel like that's something that would fit for an O. But on the other hand, I look at all these words. other than piano, there is no, oh no, oh sorry, my mistake. No, my mistake, I got them mixed up. Circle at the top, circle at the bottom. It's the circle at the top that's the O, the circle at the bottom is the A, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So yes, ZPay. We now have a very good candidate. We know that the P, this sort of T-looking shape, matches the P in piano, and we know that the circle at the bottom represents the O vowel and these other, or, sorry, I'm still confused on this vowel. You see the circle at the bottom represents the A sound on these other words. And maybe I keep thinking it's O because it looks like a little O. It's a little circle, but that's no excuse. So this is now very strongly suggested to be ZPay. Okay, so I feel confident enough to launch that in. And I guess we've been relying on piano so much. We got to just put piano in there. Got to lock that in for piano. Now, okay, so now where can we go to next? Well, one thing, by opening up ZPay, and there's no other P's anywhere, there's no Y. We can continue with the shapes of piano. We can look for Y's, but there's no other Y, and there's no other N's. So we can't do anything more with those piano shapes, at least not from the consonants there. From ZPay, we can see we now know what Z is. We know that this first sound is Z. And look at that. See, it just says P with the vowel E there. It has that little tail there. Well, Z also has that same little tail for that E vowel. The letter I, written as the letter I and the sound E. But that's also a dead end because there's nothing else that starts with the Z. So I think we're out of consonants to compare, so I think we really have to lean into these vowels. So we saw very helpfully that this A vowel gets the little circle at the bottom, and I wonder if we can try to use that for some other words. Well, if we look here, like this first word here, it looks like they're similar. Ooh, but yeah, I'm seeing the little circle at the end there. And so it almost looks like it's two similar letters. Maybe they have the same consonant with a different vowel, with an O ending. Or sorry, with an E, with an A, the A sound ending. And so this, yes, well, we do have an example of that. The only thing is it doesn't have an O. Now, coque, it is, two syllables here. They both start with the same sound. The second vowel is A, so it does fit. The only thing it doesn't fit is you don't get the circle on top. I mean, it's possible it may not be a universal thing that, every sound that has an O gets the circle. So it may be a different version, but let's see if we have a better match. Here we have another circle, but you see the first one's totally different. Yeah, like if we look at the remaining words, none of the remaining words have the same consonant starting each. Oh, there it is, tattoo. Okay, tattoo does. So there's coque and tattoo. These are the two words that have the same consonant repeating. Just like we saw here with like coque, the capital coque, it looks like the same shape with the little different tails. That's what we see here on A, and is there another one? What can it, oh nope, but I got confused again by my English because of course I was treating the two T's as being the same letter, but capital T is different from the little t. It's not just a capitalized name or something. So they're totally different letters in this language. They're just writing them using these letters for convenience, using the Roman letters, but they're different. So this is not an example. The only example of a word that has the two consonants repeating koke is A. And even though we don't get that O little circle match that we're looking for, the fact that the A circle is there at the end of the second symbol, and these shapes match way better than any other shapes here, and we see that the consonants seem to match the shape, I'm confident to make koke into A. Okay. So now, based on the new information, we plug the new information in, we get ko. We now have ko and k. Can we use these pieces for anything else? No. There's no other k's and no other small k's that we haven't dealt with yet. So we have to continue to work with the vowels here. And we have a different kind of O that we can maybe look for. We also have an A, this circle at the bottom, which matches with A, at least sometimes. So where do we go next? Well, there's no other words that end with the A vowel, as in the letter E, except gate. Ah, there it is. Gate. You see, so the only one of these words left we haven't dealt with that has that little circle at the bottom and in the second symbol is G here. And, oh, but also no, also this one. Ooh. But J, oh. Ah, but no, we already solved that. We already know that's Z-pay. Oh, and by the way, Z-pay, that must be zipper. That's another loaned word, brought in word, just like piano. Maybe it could have been guessable, Z-pay. But yeah, so there's no other unknown words that have that little circle at the bottom, and there's no other choice that has the E vowel. So that's, again, I think that's a good guess to set G to be gate. Okay, so now we have the G, the capital G consonant. The capital G consonant looks like this. And so we look for, and we can now, apply that to the next unknown word, and it seems to be the best match. It seems to be here with B. And look, there's that little circle at the bottom for the A vowel, and it's geta. So that fits. That fits very well. And so we can mark that in. And now we only got a few left, and we have the T. We now understand the shape of the T, which we can use to get tattoo here. So this T shape, it almost looks a little bit like a T, kind of the cross here. Well, what do we have? No, two. Oh, but oh no, there's betu and tattoo. Ooh, okay. Yeah, look at this. Okay. So there's tattoo, betu. Okay, so there's two other sounds that have a T in the second symbol. And now, which one's which? Well, look at that little circle again. If we take that circle to be the A vowel, then that matches with betu. And this would then leave tattoo. And so, yeah, that seems pretty strong. So we can line that up. And then you get that final, the final step is whichever one has not been matched yet, which is D. Now and just look at it to see if there's any surprises. Laba, yes, laba is kind of totally different from the others. There's no matches there. And it falls into place. And there it is. And so you can see how you just use each piece that you solve, you just roll it into the next piece. And just end with a little fun fact from this language. You can see like betu here means his house. And this is really like goes deep into the origin of the letter B. Ancient, you can see like ancient Greek, it's called like beta, and we call it B. And you can see this, this is cognate with Semitic languages. This is, you can see like many similar, like Arabic and Hebrew, you're going to see similar word meaning house. And even going back to the origin of the letter B, going back into the early days of the ancient alphabets, and even going back, I believe, to ancient Egyptian in how it was presented, is this little picture of a house. It's like a little floor plan of a house, and that represents the letter B. And you can see that going all the way back here, and it still survives in our alphabet. But that's just a fun little extra bit of information. There you go. So here it is, and that's how you solve this kind of problem. Yep, so this is one of those pure pattern matching problems. And first it can look like completely random stuff, almost looks like it could be Martian or something, but yeah, you could read Martian, you can figure it out. Once you get that first step in, then you just have that cascade where one clue leads to another clue. Keep following the clues. When you hit a dead end, take a step back and take another path. But there's going to be enough there to solve the problem.